We're going to look at our second project for our advanced manufacturing class, and it's going to be a metal sign. And when I say metal sign, I want to show you a few pictures of what I'm thinking of. We are looking at something like this. Let's get my face out of the way. This metal sign that's got the Minnesota outlay. It could be for a business or a family name. Even something like this is perfect. If we start getting to signs where we cut out lots of individual letters like Valero, that's going to be a problem. We could do cursive fonts that are all connected. One of the things that I want to point out is how we're going to attach this to the backer board. So these bolts are going to have like 1 inch or 3/4 inch standoffs. So it's actually a very small piece of pipe. Think of it as a straw that actually holds this metal off of the wood, and that's how it's going to connect. You can kind of see that on this one. This is kind of cool where we integrate some just CNC wood carving, and then we've got these two bolts that hold that plasma cut sign out. As with all plasma cutting, we've got to be careful about the fonts that we use and how we get them to either stick together or going to stick onto the board. So the requirement of the project is you've got to make a metal sign that attaches to a wood backer board. And we're looking as a size of, about 11 by 18. Oh, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. So we don't want these to get too big just because it gets expensive. So we're looking right around 200 square inches or so for this project. And if we want to, we'll use the same project rubric that all the projects are graded with, whether you're working on the sauna or you're working on the coffee table. This is that same project. So measurement's important. We're going to do a sketch for this one. We didn't do that before, but I want to do a sketch for this one. And so we'll talk through some of that stuff in class. But we've got to find a way to attach our sign to our backer board. So again, bolts. This one's got bolts through the family sign. So I want to walk through a couple of these different options for how we'd actually do this in SketchUp. Or in Vcarve. We're not going to use SketchUp for this. So what you see here is I have created a job that's going to be 18 wide and 11 tall. We want to stick with those dimensions because they work really well out of 4-foot material. So if we go 18 times 2 or 18 times 3, we get that into a 4-foot sheet pretty easy. We can also go 18 if we're going to do one vertical, so think of a 4-foot sheet, and then we go plus 22, and we get 40. So we could kind of do 2 the horizontal way and 1 the vertical way, and we got all this to lay out pretty well on a sheet of material. So that's where we're coming up with the 11 by 18. If you would like to do a circle, it just has to be less than 200 square feet. So you can do your math and figure out what diameter of a circle that is. But it's probably like a 13 or 14 inch diameter circle. We want to keep this under 200 square feet. So I'm going to do a really simple one that just says Swenson family, and then we'll try to bring in something a little bit more complicated. None of this really matters because we flatten everything out with the plasma cutter. It's not like the CNC router for wood. So I'm going to start here with the text, and I'm going to do 2 different lines. Swenson, and then I'll click outside here and family, and then close. So I'm going to move these down. I'm going to move this up. We want this to be relatively big, but we're using 22 gauge sheet metal, which, as some of you who use or who have built the coffee table with the cut through, you'll notice it gets a little bit flimsy. So we got to be careful that we don't cut out all of the metal. We've got to leave some metal to keep this strong. Some things we can also look at is, do we want to do this in all capitals? So on my last name, Swenson, if all of this falls through, we've got an issue with the E and the O. That's going to be a problem. Family, we're going to have an issue with the A. The I will be fine because it's not connected. But let's switch Swenson. It's upper and lowercase. Let's just go Swenson in all uppercase. And we can see that we are going to be okay here because we would have the O. So the E is now easy to cut out. But the biggest problem with this is that I would have a whole bunch of individual letters, which is, I guess that's not a big problem. So with this sign, you're going to see mostly metal, and the wood will shine through with the Swenson. So it'll be kind of a negative image. Now, if we wanted to see mostly wood with just a little bit of metal, maybe the Swenson I want to be in metal, I'm going to need to do a different font. So I could come over here and find a cursive font. And these cursive fonts are going to allow all these letters to connect and stay put. We want to try to find, like that's going to look really stupid. We want to try to find a little bolder. We've got a couple tricks that we can do here. If you like that font, that's great. Let's see what it looks like if it's bold. It looks a little better bold, but I think that looks kind of silly. So trying to find the right font, and if you like it, that's fine. It's just not my favorite one. I want to try to find one that's bold. So if we like this one, that can work. We're going to have to do a little bit of maneuvering of pieces, and that's okay. I'm still trying to find the one that I like the best. I'm going to start at the bottom. We want to try to find a bold cursive font because we don't want a bunch of real thin stuff. Then I'm also going to show you what to do if you don't like cursive, but you want all your stuff to be connected. All right, let's say this is the one that I like. I want to make it bold, and I'm probably going to go a little bit bigger. I can do this with the edit tools. Close. So let's start with Swenson. Boy, there's some big spaces between there. Not thrilled with that. We need the letters to be touching. And you can go to Illustrator if you want to bring in a different font. But in just a second, I'm going to show you what you can do if you can't find them connected. Just not digging these fonts on here. That's kind of cool. All right, I'm going to go with this one because I want to. So we're going to do this one. If you like it, that's great. If you don't like it, that's okay too. First thing we have to do, if we want to, we have to convert this to curves. So what this means is I'm not going to be able to edit the text after I convert it to curves. So you can't change the font after this. You have to start over. But now that I converted it to curves, each of these things becomes its own part. So like right away, I'm going to get rid of these little things that are in here that the plasma cutter doesn't even know what to do. Next thing I got to do is I got to make these touch. So I can do that, and then if I zoom in on here and I come to the trim tool, I can cut that out and I can cut this out. Whoops, daisy. So now those two things are touching. It's a pretty big gap between the E and the W. So if I wanted to, I could take these two, highlight all this, and bring it over to have it touch. But I'll also show you another trick here in a minute. So let's say I want these to touch. Let's move this over. And the more touch points we have, the better, because it'll be a little stiffer project. And this isn't going to do anything. So maybe these two fonts aren't the best option. Or maybe we just leave these and I have to put 2 bolts through them. I might be pushing that a little too hard. We can certainly get these ones to connect. And what I mean is, if I can't get them to connect kind of naturally, we can just put them on our board with more screws or bolts. So maybe we'd have to put a screw here and a screw here, instead of being able to just use 2 screws to hold the whole thing. So I am chopping this out. Okay, those two go together nice. And maybe again, it's the same deal. I'll get these ones to go together, but I may not be able to get the other ones to go together. Oops, a daisy. So I just hit Control Z to undo that. Like this can get disappeared, and there's a natural point there. Okay, so now I took Swenson and I've got it in 3 letters instead of the 4, 5, 7 that it would be. I just need to redo my spacing so it looks kind of natural. So I'm going to have 3 sets that I got to attach. So I'll probably have to put a bolt here, 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 and probably over here. Now let's say you don't like that option. You can also do something with a bar. So if I want to do a non-cursive font, I can come down here, then I'm just going to put a big old bar under here. That looks good. And I'm going to have to play with some of this. So I'm going to have to move the Y up a little bit or it's going to look like a V. So it might not be the best font to do. But now that I got that up just a little bit, I'm going to come here and I can start chopping these guys. And maybe I need to move this up so there's a little more overlap. And so now they're going to all be connected by this bar at the bottom, which for some people, and that A is going to be gone, so we got to be okay with that A being gone. Oops. There. So that's going to be gone. So if you don't like that, maybe you do a capital A instead. And then we're going to have to do something here to keep this little I in place. So I'll do this, and then we'll trim this out. So that's connected. So now when I cut out family, I could put just a bolt here and a bolt here, and I could hang that onto the piece of wood. So you can go this route. And it's really going to take you some playing around with the fonts to get it to look the way that you want it. It takes a lot of work actually to get, if we go back to these pictures, to get a sign that comes out perfect every time. It does take quite a bit of work. You can see on the A here on this farm sign, they've got a thin little line that they kept here to hold that, and they did the same thing on the R. So it might be easier for you to do a sign kind of like this with the Minnesota in it. And I'll show you how to do something kind of fun with that right now. So I'm going to close this, and I'm actually going to erase all this, and I'm going to flip this sign the other way. So I'm going to go 11 by 18. Say okay. Now I need to get a silhouette of Minnesota in here. So I'm going to open up a new tab. And I'm going to say, whoa. I spelled silhouette wrong, but thankfully it got me. So let's see what this looks like. If I go to vector stock, sometimes these work. I'm just going to copy the image. I'm going to paste it right in here. Control V. Maybe I got to hit edit. Well, it's not liking me. Right click, hit paste. None of those things are liking me. I don't want to pay for this. Let's download the JPEG preview. There we go. We can do that. And then I come over here, click on the bird tool. I'll go to downloads, and I can pop this right in there. So we got a pretty cool tool here. I'm going to shrink. I guess that's okay. Got a pretty cool tool here. I can hit this birdie, and then I shrink it down to say I only want to keep the black. Preview, apply, close. Now I can click on that, and I've got some other stuff down here that I want to get rid of, but I also have some stuff down here that I want to draw a line straight across, and then I can close, or I can delete all this junk down here, ungroup it. I'll erase this first. And then we take this, trace it across, get in so I can see it. Close that. And now we're going to merge this and that. Let's see if this does what I want. That did not do what I wanted it to do. Let's see if I can trim any of this. There we go. Trim that off. So now I've got Minnesota. I'm going to shrink it down a hair because I don't want it to be that big. And I'm actually going to use the state of Minnesota a few more times. You'll see this, and I don't need to use the whole piece. I think my proportions are not going to allow me to do that. I could type in H-O-M-E. I'm actually going to get rid of the O, but leave a space there. And we're going to go way more simple. Just like that. And I'll again convert these to curves so I can edit them separately and change the spacing. But I'm going to copy this and paste this. Oops. You can see when I click on there, it did not include that. So we're going to hold down Shift, connect that, and say join. Actually, it looks like I got an extra image there I'm going to get rid of. Don't need to confuse anything. Okay, so I got that Minnesota. It's all one part now. I'm going to hit Control Z, Control V, and I'm going to shrink this one down. And I can take that and make that my O. You may not like that, and that's okay. You don't have to do things exactly the way that I'm doing them. There. So I could take this image and go to the laser engraver with it. Or not the laser engraver, the plasma cutter. And I would plasma cut this out. We're going to have to do another rectangle in here as well. So let's do that. I'm going to click on the rectangle tool. I'll make one the size of the whole deal. And then we're going to edit the shape to just be a little bit smaller. Because I don't think I need all that space on the bottom. I'm going to move that over just a hair. Grab that edit tool. I just want this to be on the inside of my boundaries. I think that looks good. So then I could take this file, export as a DXF, save it on the flash drive, which I don't have. I'll put it in downloads. And we could bring that over to the plasma cutter. You could find one of the academic mentors to help you cut that out. And then we're going to wind up drilling holes in the corners. And if we want to do that here, that's not a terrible idea. So you don't have to try to do this later since we've got the plasma cutter. If we want to drill, let's even go a 3/8 hole, 0.375 diameter, create. I could take this and move it, because we're going to have to bolt this to the wood somehow, and I'm going to say Control C, Control V, bring it over to here. I'm going to move that one up a click, and I'll also move this one up to make it match. Control C, Control V, and then things are pretty well lined up, and now I will definitely be able to use those holes to bolt it onto the wood. So if I go back to my images here, those would be the holes. And if you want to make it simpler like this, if you want to do something like this, if you want to hunt around and find the right font to do that with, I'm happy to help you with all of that stuff. There are so many different options that you guys can do. That's really pretty. I would just avoid doing this where you have a whole bunch of metal pieces. This is great. That's great. We got quite a few cool things that we could do. If you got questions, hit me up. I'm happy to help you with it.